Big question mark then over Jasprit Bumrah's availability for the T20 World Cup. Not the news that Indian fans would have wanted to hear, as the focus on the South Africa series was more about just getting the last few boxes ticked. And Rohit Sharma did say at the toss of that opening game against South Africa at Thiruvananthapuram that Bumrah had a bit of a niggle in the morning, which is why Deepak Chahar played. Now we're hearing that it could be more than a niggle, it could be a stress fracture, it could see him out of action for months. So let's look at the impact of this news with Wasim. Jaffer, also try and get the latest from Nagraj Gollapudi, our news editor of ESPNcricinfo. I'll come to Wasim in a moment. Naga, first tell us, Indian fans would be thinking, is Bumrah out of the World Cup? Not the news they want to be discussing at this point.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, especially the Indian team management, which would have been very happy with his recovery after his injury, which kept him out of the Asia Cup, and he returned only recently and played a couple of games against Australia. But I guess yesterday was sort of a signal that there was something concerning about Bumrah's fitness, especially when Rohit said at the toss and at the toss against South Africa in Thiruvananthapuram that Bumrah was being rested because of the back niggle. And it seems that Bumrah traveled immediately to NCA in Bangalore to undergo scans, which are the results, as far as I'm told, they're not out yet. But PTI is reporting that unnamed BCC official telling them that it's a stress fracture. So it's very serious. If it's a stress fracture, whether there is a surgery or not doesn't really matter, because the immediate thing would be he's out of the World Cup.
Okay, Wasim, I guess we say indeed the Indian team has so much depth and they're spoiled for options. But Bumrah, I mean, is this, if we are to assume he's out of the T20 World Cup, how badly does that affect India's chances? Or do you believe they still have the quality to cover someone like him?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we've got a replacement for Bumrah. He's an important player, a vital cog in this Indian team, and he'll be sorely missed. We haven't got anybody as good as Bumrah to bowl in the power play as well as in the death, especially. But the best guy probably to replace him, I would say, would be Mohammad Shami. But again, the death bowling is a concern with Shami in the death. But that's the best we've got. But that is going to be a massive blow for India's preparation for the World Cup.
Naga, there seems to be a sentiment among Indian fans saying, how could they let this happen to Bumrah, right? They manage his workload, there are all the resources and facilities at the NCA, and yet this has happened. I mean, he plays the IPL and he doesn't play as a lot of international cricket, and now he might miss a World Cup. How do you temper that kind of emotion?
Well, I think let's not jump the gun here, because I think NCA is being managed well and it's being looked after previously by Dravid and now VVS Lakshman, and also a senior physio in you had a senior medical staff member from Nitin Patel, who is now the head of sports medicine at NCA, and he's a very responsible guy, and he's been with the Indian team for a long time. So he understands workloads, he understands the players' psyches, he understands how the players sometimes might want to come back sooner before even during recovery. But being the sort of senior person he is, players also trust him, and Nitin, I don't think would have allowed any player, forget it be Bumrah or whether it be a junior player, to go back to play cricket. So I don't think it's anything irresponsible on part of NCA or BCCI. There are enough officials who are there who understand the gravity of the situation in terms of the World Cup being there, and that's why they were kind of have sort of ensured that Bumrah kind of a guy and the main guys have stayed fit. So I don't see anything responsible on their front, really.
Wasim, if you'd like to extend on that, should we just look at this as bad timing and bad luck and nothing more?
I just feel that probably on the hindsight, I would say whether they've rushed him into playing, against Australia a little bit, if at all, I can say that he might have, taken a bit more time and probably got ready for the World Cup. I don't know the seriousness of the injury, but that's what I feel. Whether they kind of pushed him too early to play, and then obviously it reoccurred. But that's all I can think. Probably the stress fracture might have been there, not to that extent, but probably it might have got worse after him playing a couple of games, under that pressure. So probably, they kind of jumped the gun too early or made him play those games little early.
Well, as it
Can I
turns
just
out,
add to that a little bit?
yeah,
Yeah.
he bowled 6 overs in that Australia series. Just pointing it out, he didn't even sort of play the entire series as such. But yes, Naga, please.
Yeah, interesting point that Wasim makes. In fact, if what I was told was correct, the original plan apparently was when, in terms of Bumrah's comeback, was he would be eased into the South Africa T20s rather than the Australia T20s. And I remember, I think it was in Nagpur where the rain truncated game, which turned out to be 8 overs an innings. That's where Bumrah played and bowled a couple of overs, if I'm not mistaken, and bowled really well, right?
Yes.
Whether it was his call to push himself or whether the team management agreed that he was now ready to bowl just that. Because Rohit did say something interesting at the toss or something during the match. I clearly remember that this was the right way. If they thought that they could test, they or Bumrah could test himself about his fitness, his bowling fitness. So in hindsight, we can always say that was that really worth a risk? But then they also know the importance of this guy, so they wouldn't have taken it lightly. They would have considered all these factors. So we need to keep that in mind.